Attention, please. Would members of the Community Development and Recreation Committee please report to Committee Room 1 for quorum? Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody. We can begin. Welcome to meeting 12 of the Community Development and Recreation Committee. Special welcome to members of the committee, other members of council in attendance today, and of course, members of the public. For those in the room with us, the screen at the back of the room provides real-time updates concerning where we are on the agenda and what's coming up next. And of course, you can always follow the agenda and debate on your computer, tablet, or smartphone at toronto.ca/council. I'd like to begin on a solemn note. Toronto Fire Services lost one of its own this past week. Sarah Rosen, a 15-year veteran, was killed in a mountain biking accident while out riding with a friend at Kelso Conservation Area in Milton, Ontario. And when you read the tributes to Sarah that came in from colleagues, as well as the moving eulogies at her funeral, you just know that the City of Toronto and her family and friends have lost someone very special. She's deeply admired and respected, and my sense of all that has been said, she will be deeply missed. So let us rise for a moment of silence. Okay, please be seated. I'd like to also welcome to our committee visitors from the University of Amsterdam who are doing a research project called Diversities. They are here to learn about what Toronto and Canada do about settlement and intake when it comes to the diversity in our cities. Dr. Tuna Tassin Koch is here at the back. Sarah Ozigal. And Eric Day is a master's student at the University of Amsterdam. He's actually from Toronto, and he's doing a master's in urban planning. And we'll be meeting with them afterwards. They're all from, the two professors are from the University of Amsterdam. I read their abstract of their study. It is most ambitious. I encourage you all to read it. There's a reference here to Toronto. And I'll just read, we're always interested in what people say about us, but it goes on, it says in one section here, we see Canada as a very important case to contrast with European countries, as Canada has probably gone further than any other state to institutionalize and celebrate the diversity of its population. Toronto is one of the most hyper-diversified cities in the world and has the highest proportion of immigrant residents, 46%, among all OECD metropolitan regions. But that is not seen as a problem in the policy discourse. Toronto's motto is diversity is our strength. The proportion of immigrants is on average much lower in Europe. So I look forward to speaking with you after the meeting to tell you our strategies and our success story here in Toronto. And thank you once again for coming. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? None. Confirmation of minutes for the April 13th, 2016 minute. Councillor Cole? All those in favor? Carried. Item 12.6, we do have deputants. I just wanted to alert you that there is a motion to defer that item. Councillor Ballo, I understand you're taking carriage of a combined motion between yourself and visiting Councillor Cesar Palacio. Rather than our deputants waiting around for hours to speak, it's been suggested that we move the motion at the top of the meeting.
Can I just hear back from him to confirm? Can we just hold off on?
We can hold the item down if you wish, sure.
I just need a few minutes.
They could speak to, I mean, once the motion is on the table is deferral. No, but they could speak to the item if, it's a courtesy to let them know it's being deferred.
No, it's a courtesy, but they can still speak
They can still speak.
about the item, not the deferral.
Mr. Chair, the procedure bylaw states that if there's going to be a motion to defer a matter, and if persons have given their intention to make public presentations, the committee should make the deferral motion as soon as possible. But certainly it's up to the committee how you want to proceed.
I want to be very clear, and if we have to call that, you can let somebody know you wish to make a deferral motion, that you're going to be deferring it. And then deputants have they can come back, they can speak now about that. Once that motion's on the floor, then it's really up to the deputants as to if they'd like to make a deputation or not. It's not up to the committee. We have to hear them should they wish to be heard. Is that correct?
We can certainly hear them. We're just alerting them.
I'm establishing this principle here, so.
Well, the principle has been established. We can certainly hear them. The normal practice is if a deferral motion is coming, as the clerk said, it's to be done as early as possible in the proceedings and as a courtesy to deputants. So if they think a final decision is going to be made today, they can be alerted to the fact that it will not be.
But thank you, Mr. Chair, that's very helpful. But they can speak today, should they wish, and they can speak whenever it comes back, should they wish, correct?
As far as I'm concerned,
We have the speaker here, but But yes, that's correct.
As far as I'm concerned, if they wish to depute today, that is fine, and of course, when the item comes back, they can depute then as well.
Thank you very much for establishing that. They have the right to depute, even if we're deferring it. I'm just establishing that. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Item CD 12.1, extension of 4 outdoor pools operation for the month of September. This is here for receipt. Anyone like to hold that item? Okay. Like someone to move receipt? Councillor Cole, all those in favor?
Okay.
CD 12.2, Ontario Green Investment Fund benefiting social housing apartment retrofit program, a good news story. Would anyone like to hold that item? Someone like to adopt the recommendations? Councillor Ballo, all those in favor? That is carried. CD 12.3, proposed amendments to the Housing Services Act related to provincial long-term affordable housing strategy update. Anyone like to hold that item? Yeah. Councillor Ballo's holding that item. CD 12.4, investment funding programs, 2016 allocation recommendations for service development improvement program, and request for approval of new initiatives. Anyone like to move the recommendations? Councillor Fletcher, all those in favor? That is carried. So 12.5, we're going to,
Can you hold that item down for me?
we're holding that item down.
Thank
We have a
you.
visiting councillor. Councillor Nunziata would like to speak to it. We have a motion as well. I've agreed to take carriage of it.
Thank you.
And CD 12.6, 2015 allocations, Community Legacy Initiative follow-up. This was the deferral motion. But we would go to... Okay, we'll hold the item down.
Not holding it down. Do the deputants wish to address it before you make a deferral item? It's on the floor, and then you get to address it. That's how it works.
Well, we can vary the agenda to put this at the top so rather than,
Put it wherever you'd like.
well, with the,
Once it's on the floor, they can make the deputy.
okay, the motion hasn't been moved, so it's not on the floor. All we're doing is reviewing the agenda at this point. We do, we can vary the agenda once it's, I've got one other item. If you look at your correspondence from Councillor Josh Matlow, this is a new item. I need a motion to put this onto the agenda. Councillor Fletcher, all those in favor? This item is now on the agenda. So, after much discussion, with the approval of the committee, I'd like to hear deputants for item 12.6, put that at the top of the agenda, and with the full understanding, there is a motion that will be moved when we go to speakers to defer that item. And I think that will keep everyone calm.
Perfect. Very calm.
Oscar Vigil, executive, so we adopt the, we can go right to deputants. Oscar Vigil, Executive Director, Hispanic Canadian Heritage Council. Thank you very much for coming. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I have prepared a long deputation regarding the case, but at this point, you want to say that we are against the proposal to defer this meeting to October. we are against to defer this topic. That's the thing we want to say. We are the Hispanic Canadian Heritage Council. There is a coalition of 15 organizations, Hispanic Latin American organizations. We were working with the staff of the City of Toronto, and we are supporting the proposal the City of Toronto, the staff of the City of Toronto is making. But we want to have the opportunity to speak about this topic with more in deep about this topic. There are more deputations that are coming. Some of them are not here because this was supposed to be at the end of the agenda. And I think we need the opportunity to explain to the councilors what is happening in this topic. And for that reason, we want to ask you to keep the discussion of this topic as was presented in the agenda today. And then we, as a Hispanic community, Hispanic Latin American community, will have the opportunity to speak clearly about what is happening in this process that we feel that for a moment has been unfair against the Hispanic Latin American community. And at the end, I would like to synthesize my deputation saying that we oppose totally and absolutely to the last-minute proposal made for Councilor Cesar Palacio, as a decision in that direction could be considered as an appropriate political interference in our community affairs. We will ask not to introduce the proposal Cesar Palacio sent last night at last minute to defer this topic. Please keep the agenda as it was presented and hear the voice of the Latin American community.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the deputant? Councillor Fletcher?
Thanks for your opinion today. If the committee should defer this item, as is requested by a councillor, in his letter, he states that we should defer it so he can organize a meeting with the help of the city. Would you, if it's deferred, would you prefer to have the city organize a meeting, not a councillor organize a meeting on behalf of the community?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because we were working with the city and we believe in the staff of the city.
So that it would be convened by the city, not through the council?
Absolutely. But just let me ask you something. And we are working actually the project. And if we defer this proposal to October, that will mean we'll have to stop everything we are doing at this point. And what we are agree is the proposal of the city staff to give a portion of the grant of the funds to the organization, keep another portion to restart a process to call to this dialogue.
So you have a proposal that some gets held back and some is dispersed?
It's the city proposal. It's the city
That's the
staff
staff
proposal.
proposal.
Yeah, we support the city staff proposal 100%.
So I'll have to establish which part would, if that whole thing would get deferred or just the extra amount. But thank you for your opinion. Appreciate it.
Any other questions for the deputant? No? Okay, thank you very much. Claudio Ruiz Palarte, the Center for Spanish-Speaking Peoples.
It's coming.
Paulo Gomez.
It's coming too.
Eduardo Herrera. Thanks very much for coming. You have 5 minutes.
Pero tú tienes que empezar, te dieron la mesa a ti. Good morning, committee members. We thank you for your time today to listen to our deputation. My name is Erica Aguilera. I'm a president of Latinlicious. I'm also a community member and a Toronto Catholic District School Board Community Relations Officer. We are here today to discuss the nature of our business. We distribute information about our organization, which is a non-for-profit organization whose purpose mainly is to enhance and promote the culture of our Hispanic community. And the founding members of this organization have been working very hard to develop the concept of the event Latinlicious, which is an art based for the art, food, and music promotion in our community. As you could see, and based on what our previous deputant has mentioned, this has been continued issues within our community as the Legacy Fund from the Pan American Games, which the city worked together with the community, was set to benefit the community at large. However, when some part of that funding is in violation of our trademark and an ownership of not only the concept, but the trade as per se, we would like to bring that information to the council for you to consider that when you take the resolution to grant or not the funds for the community. We are also support on the deferral of the committee to wish to discuss fully with the community how these funds should be and could be released in the benefit of the community at large, as we would like to avoid any hardship that it's going to be done to our company. And also we would like to set for the record that we are here in good faith to work together, and we agree with the request to defer these funds until all the communities, and I'm talking about not only a particular sector of the community, but the community at large, which is the beneficiary of these funds, are come to the table and discuss how these funds should be released to really promote and benefit the community at large. That's why we wanted to be here today to present our arguments for you to be aware of these situations. It is very regretfully that these situations are happening, but we would like to bring it forward to the city, as we have been working with the city for many, many years in developing the promote and benefit of the Hispanic community as the third largest community in Canada. Also, we would like to take this opportunity to set to the record again that we are willing to keep working with the proposal of the city to sit with the community representatives, but not only by organizations, which has been very clear for us to ask to bring to the table the community at large, which voices have been silent and not been listened. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Questions for the deputy, Councilor Garriganis?
Good morning, and thank you for coming. I have a letter from Latin American Education Network, and the second paragraph, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but I'm just going to read it for you. We first wrote the city about this issue in November 2015 when we learned of the lack of transparency occurring in the selection process of the CLI recipients. Hispanic Canadian Heritage Council. The organization was already on our radar as an organization that was complacent to racist, homophobic, and elitist practices under the leadership of Claudio Ruiz, Oscar Vigil, Dubrelis Ramo, Maria Luis Grimaldi, and the advisors Cesar Palacio, Fernando Valadares, Erica Aguilera. It goes on. While we acknowledge that many of these members have since been asked to leave the HCHC, since our complaints were deemed to have basis, we have it in good authority that the string pulling is still occurring in the opaque corners of this process. We're available to provide our supporting documents to your committee as needed. Are you aware of this letter?
No, we are not.
Okay. Can I probably ask the clerk to give them a copy? Do you have any comments on what I just read you?
Councilor, who wrote that letter? All right, let's get it circulated then.
It is, I was given
You have
a
it?
copy. You want to put my time on hold, Chair?
You can continue.
Thank you, appreciate it. Have you any comments on what I just read you?
We will reserve our comments on regards of particular topics in there. However, we will have to agree with the Latin American Education Network on that the city taking the necessary steps to make sure that the funds released to the community are for the benefit of the community at large.
Okay. You, members of your organization, have registered articles of incorporation with the federal government, the name Latinlicious.
Yes, we are.
Now, we are talking today about releasing funds, something regarding to Latinlicious.
Yes, indeed, and that's why we bring today to the table this issue, as we are the holders of that right. We have also the founder of one of the founders of our corporation holds the authorship of the event and the concept, which has been violated in this regard. We have sent many letters to the Hispanic Canadian Heritage Council on regards to stop using the name Latinlicious, our concept of our march, which they have been disregarded until today.
So if this money was to be released to the Hispanic Heritage Month to Hispanic Canadian Heritage Council, because they're developing 175,175, the name Latinlicious, will you be taking any steps on this?
What we would like to set this committee straight is that they have developed this proposal on regards on an app based on an event that they have not developed, that it's under our umbrella. Therefore, we don't understand why such funds have been asked to the city to be released for an event that they don't own and which ownership falls in our company.
So, I mean, I'm reading the recommendation. It says, for the development of a mobile application to support a Latinlicious event. That tells me that since you got the name registered federally, then therefore the money should be rightfully coming to you. And if it doesn't, then there could be consequences for the city. I mean, you could probably spark a lawsuit. Would I be incorrect? Are you considering that at all?
We have not considered any legal action at this point. We have been trying to come to an agreement with them, and that's why we have been sending numerous requests, which you will find in the documentation that we provided to you, to the chair, and we have not yet received neither response for our emails, which has been sent since February 2016 until May 11th. We have reserved our right. We sent those letters without prejudice. And at this point, that's why we are here today. We agree with the city to defer these discussions until all this is follow due process and be resolved in favor of the community.
My last question, I had a communication that I will circulate with Mr. Chris Billinger, asking him if he was aware that Latinlicious was a registered trademark. When I got back is, yes, we understand that a number of individuals have registered Latinlicious in February of this year. This does complicate things, and I'm meeting with HCHC to review. I will provide you an update after the meeting. I hope that this is helpful. Thanks. I mean, I haven't got anything back, but have you been approached by the city?
No, we have not.
So you have absolutely no communication from the city?
No, we have not.
Thank you, Councilor Yurganis. Any other questions for the deputants? I just have one. You're co-chair of LANE, the Latin American.
No, I am not.
Latin American Education Network?
No, I am not.
You're
No.
not?
No, my name is Erica Aguilera. I'm president of Latinlicious.
All right, and you registered Latinlicious under an incorporated name before the other group? The other group has also registered as an incorporated entity?
No, they are not. They have been working collaboratively with us on the project. However, we have the ownership of the trademark and also the concept for the festival, which has been set in the timelines that we have presented to council today.
So are there two competing organizations that are saying they have the trademark and the name, or no?
No, they are not. We are the ones who hold the trademark. They are asking the city to provide funds for an app that will use the name Latinlicious without our consent. And they are using our concept to develop that.
Are they using the Latinlicious name?
Yes, they are.
They are. Yet you're claiming that you have it duly registered as your trademark.
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I understand that deputants who were not here earlier are here now. Claudio Pilarte is here, or no? And Paulo Gomez? No, neither are here.
So this is someone else here, right?
All right, well, if Councillor Fletcher asked that the process be followed through, so it's questions for staff.
There's one more speaker.
This is the registration of
No. Is Sylvia Argentia Araz here? Okay. Thanks for coming. You have 5 minutes.
Good? Okay. Thank you for having me. My first name is Sylvia Argentina. My last name is Arouse. I'm here as a community member that is also co-chair of a community group called Latin American Education Network. We sent the letter that has hopefully shed some other light on this matter. We approached the City of Toronto about some discrepancies that we found in regards to what organizations in the community were supposed to be doing to support Latin America versus what they were actually doing. And without going into what has been a lot of stories, I would really like for us to be heard today as an entity that is really concerned about this process. I also want to bring us back to why we're here. We're here for a Community Legacy Initiative Fund that is to go to Latin America, South America, and the Caribbean. I have yet to hear those terms. Hispanic is not interchangeable. We, as the Latin American Education Network, conducted several community forums that have been documented, to which we also invited said parties, some of the parties that have spoken, but were not able to receive a comment on the fact that Hispanic has been an identity that has essentially been overpowering, speaking for communities of Latin America. And today, we are here to tell you that it is not about one community, it is about many communities. And there is a very short history of Latin America in Toronto. We're a very young population here. And there is a lot of information that I don't think has been disseminated to power structures, decision makers. That is part of the work that we're doing, both with the Toronto District School Board and the Toronto Catholic District School Board. I myself am a teacher. I myself am a mother. I am very concerned about the lack of transparency, accountability I am seeing here We were not informed of the decisions that were made in regards to our initial complaints against the opaque process that was the selection process for the CLI. We were informed yesterday by a community member that this was occurring, hence the morning letter, hence the fact that we do not have all of our group here. We would like for, moving forward, for there to be community forums that serve to bring together a steering committee. The steering committee should hold multiple stakeholders, parents, educators, decision makers, youth, that have come together and rallied many times to make themselves heard, to allow for their identities, being African and indigenous identities of Latin America, to be heard. There are over 700 languages in Latin America spoken besides Spanish. There are multiple spiritualities, multiple cultures, multiple ethnicities, multiple practices that are not being represented. I have just heard back and forth an argument between Hispanic decision makers in our community. We would like for an increase in representation to occur. There is a lot of history behind it, one we are readily able to speak to. But we really do need for the City of Toronto to recognize that there's something going on here. We haven't yet pinned it down. We're trying. We ask that you support us in this to figure out why are these decisions made without all of us being at the table, or at least representatives from the different communities that encompass Latin America. As of April 2016, the Toronto District School Board recognizes April as Latin America History Month. We have there a statement on Senator Tobias' stance that speaks to what I just explained to you. There are many academic papers, there are many journals, there is a lot of literature that speaks to the systemic racism that is occurring. We would like the opportunity to have conversations about this. We would like the opportunity for faces besides my own to be on this mic, to be communicating to you what is actually happening in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions for the deputant? Councillor Nunziata.
Yeah, just a question. You mentioned when you first started that you haven't been part of the dialogue and you tried to get the, the community groups on giving you comments, right? That you've been unsuccessful in doing that with the other community groups.
At our community forums on
Right.
identity, yes.
So my question to you is then, wouldn't it be then in the best interest of you and all the community groups, as far as Councillor Palacio and other members of council may be moving a deferral to go out for community and invite all the community leaders at a forum and to hear comments from each group. Do you not think that that's best to do at this time, since you have not been involved in the process, that you would welcome that initiative?
I think that would be part of the process, yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Kanaganis.
Thank you, Chair. To the deputy and through you, Chair, you mentioned that there's other communities that have not been consulted. And I'm just going to ask you, I mean, if you look at the Caribbean, Latin American, there's Brazil that has mostly is Portuguese, there's Suriname, which is French, there's Guyana that is speaks English. Would you consider those communities as part of the larger Latin American community?
I have been in communication with leaders, with mothers, with fathers, with youth from those communities, and I would say that yes, some do absolutely consider themselves to be a part of what is a geographical region that shares many commonalities, including the Latin or Romantic languages of the peoples that from Europe that came over to the lands in the colonization process.
Thank you. Have you seen, I'm not sure if it was circulated to you, but I'll certainly give it to the clerk to circulate the corporation information sheet regarding Latin issues, the federal incorporation. Have you had a chance to take a look at this?
So yesterday we did learn about it and we were quite confused because it's the same parties that we put forward complaints about, but I guess they broke up and now, or divided, I guess, or no longer in the same organization. I don't know what the wording is around the behind the scenes, I don't want to assume, but we were confused because the grant did hold Latinlicious as one of the projects, we know that much, and now it is apparently its own entity.
There's a motion by Councillor Palacio, and I spoke to him yesterday. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here with us today because complications that have arisen, that request that this matter be deferred until October in order for him to be able, he's the only Spanish-speaking counselor to bring the communities together, and you know, he's from the region, and in order to make a cohesion moving forward. Would this be something that you'll be supporting?
I would
Or you'd
like
like
to.
us to support?
Yeah, I would like to make it very clear that we have called for the absolute removal of Cesar Palacio from this process due to past histories where we have seen that he has been a monopolizing voice. We understand that due to the limited culturally responsive figures that we have right now in positions of power, that he is our only voice, I guess, in the terms that he speaks Spanish. But like I said, good to know. Ana Bailao, all right. So in that,
from the region, too.
in that regard, it is important to note that he identifies as Hispanic, that he has been very vocal about his support for the Hispanic community. And because of I think a lot of the work that has been moving forward from the lives of the community members and their experiences, they are now starting to understand that you can't just say Hispanic. If you are talking about Latin America, you are doing a disservice and you are perpetuating a racist system. We would really appreciate it if we could have a very open process where Cesar Palacio is not the figure, essentially because he was an advisor.
He's not here to defend himself, so tread carefully on your remarks about Councilor Palacio, please.
We've made it very vocal. We've made it public.
That's fine. At this committee, you're going to tread carefully because he's not here to respond to you.
Yeah, I wish he was. I think it's really important that he should be here. Yeah.
Well, he's not.
Chair, would you want to, if you have a company, want to put my time on hold until your conversation with the deputy, or you give me an extra 15 seconds, if that's okay?
I'd be happy to add on.
Thank you, Chair, I really appreciate it. I appreciate it.
You can have the 30 seconds.
My question to the deputy through you, Chair, is seeing that you want to see a more open dialogue, and councilors from the region, Anna herself probably has some ties to the region, speaks the language and everything else, and some of us might have constituencies that are from the area, that maybe we should ask staff to hold this until over the summertime and have consultations more over an open dialogue, moderated by staff or whoever, the committee decides. Would this be something that you would be in favor?
Yes.
All right, I thank you. Chair, I do have the information that I've spoken to. I don't think it was distributed, and I'm going to ask the clerk to distribute this information, basically which, outlines the owners of this. Now, do you think that it is, my last question to you through the chair, do you think it'd be advisable for all the parties to get together and get behind, even include themselves in the registration, ask the people that are registered this, in order to make it more fair and open, and everybody owns the name? Not just the two people or the community, the committee that put it together, but other people also be able to join in.
I think it would be fair for the City of Toronto to recognize that there was a process that lacked transparency. I think it would be fair for the committee members today to really take a look at the behind-the-scenes literature, and then, based on your informed decision, bring together a group of individuals to support a steering committee for a very transparent, accountable process. I don't think, to answer your question, I don't think that getting behind Latinlicious, if you look at the definition, it is a Hispanic event for the Hispanic community. I think that at this point, we need diversity.
Okay, any other questions for the deputant? Councilor Carrigan, you'd like that circulated? Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I understand that speakers that I had asked to come forward earlier who were not here are now here. Is Claudio Ruiz Pilarte in the room? All right, thanks for coming. You have 5 minutes.
First of all, I just, for the record, because I think on the deputation when I registered, I indicated that my position was Executive Director of the Center for Spanish-Speaking Peoples, but I'm here as President of the Board of the Hispanic Canadian Heritage Council. And, excuse me, first of all, I would like to commend the city staff for the work that they do. They are in a very tough spot, and often they have to balance competing interests. So I would like to actually congratulate the city for having such competent individuals working for it. My position in regards to the HCAC is simply that although we disagree with the recommendation, when considering all the different, as I said, competing interests, we find that it's the most fair approach that the committee can take, simply because it balances out and takes a sort of middle-of-the-road position. But also, it's a recommendation that, in my opinion, is based on some very good insights and an assessment of the current situation, while at the same time maintaining a sense of fairness and justice and respects the previous decision that the committee had made in regards to dispersing this funding to the Hispanic Canadian Heritage Council. So basically, that would be the position that I would like to express at this point.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for the deputant? Councillor Karagianis?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Through you to the deputant. Sir, I circulated earlier and I spoke about a communication that I had received from city staff, Mr. Bellinger, about getting in touch with you regarding, has that meeting occurred? Has there been any communication with you?
Yes, it has.
Can you elaborate on the conversation? What was your understanding that because of this registration that is in, what is your understanding of moving forward?
It's very easy. It's simple. I mean, it's very simple in the way that I look at it. First of all, the whole issue of the name, it's in dispute. We, as an organization, have ample evidence that we created that term and that we've been using it way before it was incorporated. So that's one thing. Second, this is not an activity or an initiative that is rooted in one term. It's actually rooted in an activity that was proposed to the city. So, I mean, I would really downplay to a large extent the term.
But you're going to be receiving money for the development of a mobile application to support Latin leisures.
Correct.
Once you develop this app, then you have to register it.
Correct.
But it's already been registered.
Yeah, but again, what I'm saying is that this is not about the name. This is about an activity. I think perhaps there's a little bit too much importance being played on the actual term. The term, I could come up right now with a term for you. I could come up with 3 terms, in fact. But at the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact that it's an activity that we're proposing.
Your organization has been involved with the city for a long time.
Correct.
There has been difficulties, from what I understand. A couple of your board members have been kicked off or taken off and forced out. Would I be incorrect in assuming that?
No, that would be incorrect, actually. So
So how would you determine, or how would you qualify through the chair to you, what happened in your board and all the dissensions and all the conversations and everything that has taken place? How would you characterize it?
I would say there were simple resignations. We have the documentation to prove that it has been recorded in the minutes. So this was basically a couple of individuals that I can recall who decided that they wanted their views to predominate over everybody else's. And they decided in the end that they were going to leave. And as I said, we have the documentation to prove that.
Okay. The fact still remains that the motion says for development of a mobile application to support Latin leisures. It is a fact. This name has been registered, and if we were as a city were to proceed in that fashion, we will then be contravening other level government rules and regulations that could put us in a bind. Are you not supporting that we have an opportunity to bring the community together and ask for a postponement on this in order to make sure that things work out?
I don't think a postponement is going to actually address any of the issues that you're actually talking about. I do believe that this is the whole I mean, if I may respectfully say so, you're looking at this whole situation very sort of almost too focused on a term, when in fact, I mean, as a city, I know how City Hall works, and there are grants, proposals are given a name, activities are given a name, but it doesn't mean that the name actually is, or that the activity is subordinate to a name that you give an activity. The name can change pretty easily, but in terms of the activity that we presented, it was fairly clearly stated in the proposal when it was first submitted.
Thank you, Councillor Karygiannis. Anyone, any other questions for the deputant? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Is Paulo Gomez here? Thank you very much for coming. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to apologize for not being here at the first call. I was busy receiving an award for our work with refugee kids during the settlement process. My name is Paola Gomez, and I'm coming from a collective of artists named Seek Muse Art Projects. The reason I'm here today is because I became aware of the recent request to postpone this conversation until October, indicating that Councilor Cesar Palacio will get the community together to have this conversation. I want to make it clear that while it is true that Councilor Palacio speaks Spanish, it is not accurate to say that he represents the Latin American community.
Point of order, Chair. I'm not sure if I can have a point of order, but I think the deputy is overstepping her bounds like the previous one.
Well, I just urge caution. It's not the motion to impugn the reputation of a councillor who's not here. It's not. But with all due respect, Councillor Palacio is not here. Therefore, he cannot respond to these allegations. I think she was getting into more details about linguistics and geography.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to apologize. It's my first time in front of councilors, so I'm not familiar with the protocol. I'm here to voice my concern as an active member of the Latin American community. Again, my apologies for not being familiar with the protocol. I will accept your recommendation in terms of being cautious, and I will ask for guidance about what type of cautious I need to have. As I was mentioning, we are already having these conversations about the importance of identity has already started. I had the opportunity to review the recommendation from the city, and I strongly feel that it actually meets the needs of our community in terms of allocating monies to be able to have these conversations and being able to discuss elements of diversity that are huge in our community. There are more than 70,000 Spanish-speaking residents in Toronto. Many of us represent ourselves or identify ourselves as Latinos and do not go with the name Hispanic. We understand that through the Legacy Initiative, all these conversations started and different people had come forward and explained their concerns, and all those concerns are valid, but movement is happening, and those movements are welcome. And what the city staff is recommending is very valid in terms of being able to have a platform, having people being able to present projects to have those conversations. And again, because I saw the document where it stated that this to be postponed to call to the community, I have to say without stepping or going against any protocol, that the community organizers, such as myself, are not being represented in the council. So therefore, your initiative of allowing those spaces to happen outside of this space is very valid. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the deputants?
Question.
Yes.
Because this is actually getting very confusing. What we're talking about today, and I understand there seems to be conflict with the different groups, organizations, and I got to admit, I'm not too familiar with what's, but we're talking about a grant. We're talking about a grant which is, it's not an entitlement, it's a grant that's given to community groups. We're not here to talk about conflicts between the groups. So you understand, it's a grant that we're talking about.
I absolutely understand that there
Okay.
is a grant, that the city has recommended that some of that money goes to a previous initiative.
No, I understand that, but we're not, this report is not, we're not discussing the conflicts between, because it sounds like there's a lot of conflicts between the different groups. That's not what's in the report. What's in the report is the allocation of the grant. I just want to make sure everybody understands what we're talking about. Yeah? Okay, thanks.
I understand that, and I also understand that City Councilor Cesar Palacio has requested that this is postponed.
I understand that. And the
That's my
reason,
biggest
the
concern.
reason he's asking for that is because of the disagreement between all the groups. So when there's a disagreement, maybe it's best to defer and get all the community groups and community leaders to talk about it rather than criticize each other, correct? Is that not the best thing to do?
And I think that will be,
Yeah.
that will be achieved by allocating the $100,000 for those initiatives to happen, because conflict is no problematic. Conflict is healthy. It allows to promote those conversations. And trust me, these conversations are happening everywhere where the Latino diaspora is, and Toronto could be a lead city in promoting spaces through funding for these conversations to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Karagianis.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the deputy. We heard previously that the Latin community also should include people from Suriname, people from Guyana, people from Brazil. Are you in favor of this conversation taking place? I mean, do you feel that those communities also belong to the Hispanic, to the Latin, to the Caribbean culture?
Well, you are right in your description or using both terms Hispanic, Latino, because that's how it's commonly described. And definitely when we're talking about Latin American community, we are talking a geographical location.
Okay, in that geographical location, you have Guyanese. Have the Guyanese been at the table that your conversation with your group that you know of through the chair?
We need to bring all the individuals that are part of Latin America and identify themselves as Latin American together. We need to open those conversations to every individual who identify themselves as Latin America. Either they were born there, they have roots there. Remember, we're in a multicultural society.
Through the chair to you, the Guyanese community has not been consulted. Have they?
I am not aware of that, sir.
So then, if these people are supposed to be part and parcel of this application, then you agree that we should defer this until these communities have been welcomed and part of the conversation. I mean, in speaking to the Guyanese community, they don't know about this. And the Consul General, the Honorary Consul General of Suriname lives in my ward. I was on the phone with him last night. He doesn't know anything about this. And I'm sure the Portuguese people are probably in the same boat. So would you not then support a motion and something that has come through, Cesar Palacio has requested that we defer this until a later time, that conversation should be happening with all the community and versus moving ahead and giving the money out for a term that is already registered.
No, I don't agree. I don't believe that it has to be deferred to give the power to the same organizations and individuals that had promoted colonization. I believe that the city staff had made a very clear recommendation about locating $100,000 to have these conversations, and I think that's the perfect space to call all the communities in where that are actually community initiatives are not created by only a few group of people involved in the conversation. Only few people are having those conversations, including those who only represent themselves as Hispanics.
Through the chair to you, I appreciate the fact that you want to bring everybody together. Am I correct in that? Everybody should be under the umbrella.
Everybody should receive the call and should be their decision whether or not they come forward and are part of this conversation.
But the people that have not had the opportunity to voice and to be part of this conversation should be invited.
Absolutely, and through those initiatives of putting an open call in September for $100,000 in which people are going to be able to do their
So
projects,
there's been a
that's actually
failure.
a perfect
There has
way
been a
to do it.
failure, be it city, be it the community, to invite those other communities, the Suriname community, the Guyanese community, the Brazilian community. There's been a failure in that because they're not here to speak today. Is that what I'm hearing from you through the chair?
What you hear from me is that not many people have been involved of this. As a matter of fact, Councilor Palacios saying this at 7 o'clock last night, so very short time to put communities together. Although it was such a short time, we were able to communicate, and some members of the community are here today.
Okay, but since this has been ongoing for a number of years, and these communities have not been reached out to, and I repeat the communities again, the Guyanese, Suriname, Brazil, they should be invited.
Everybody who identifies themselves as Latin Americans should be invited. I agree with you. I cannot confirm or deny if those communities or members of that communities have been invited.
It's disrespect to the deputy chair.
Yeah, Councilor Garriganos, just a second. There's a din coming from this side and we're actually looking for an exit strategy because grant decisions are not appealable through committee.
Please put my
and
time
this
on hold.
this mess has been dropped on our committee, and we're looking for an exit strategy, please. The sooner the better.
Last question that I have for the deputy through the chair. On one side, you said that there has not been any consultations. On the other side, you say that there should be consultations. So would you then not agree that until these consultations are happening, we should put a hold on the funding, or is it the funding that is driving some folks, and never mind the torpedoes?
Don't go to questions for staff.
So what are you looking for? Are you looking for everybody to be brought together before the grant is given, or never mind, give us the money and don't worry about it? What are you looking for? Through the chair.
Well, I'm looking for an opportunity and a space for communities to come together and have these conversations of identity. The identity element was clearly defined through the recommendation from city staff. I believe that conversation is valid and is important, and we are recognizing that. I'm not representing here any particular interest. I'm here as an active member of the Latin American community, and I'm here to indicate, as I said it before, that no politician is representing the Latin American community right here. And so it is our job as community organizers to come forward and express our opinions, and that's the reason I'm here today.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions for the deputants? No? Thank you very much
Thank
for
you very much.
coming in. We're going to go to questions for staff. Councilor Garriganos.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to staff. This will be to Mr. Billinger. Sir, I was wondering if you can enlighten us of the conversations that you had since the email that I've sent you with the Latin American community.
Through the chair, there are two distinct issues, and I would suggest committee separate out the two issues raised this morning. The first is the ownership of Latinlicious. The deputants were engaged with HCHC at the time that the funding was allocated to HCHC. HCHC secured the domain for Latinlicious in January. The deputants incorporated under the corporate name of Latinlicious in February. I'm not sure, there's been some comment about copyright. I have no information about what's been copyrighted or what hasn't. That would require further research. Clearly, there was a shared project, it became an unshared project, and that's what's being expressed before committee this morning. In my conversations with HCHC, there has been some suggestion that they are not married to the name Latinlicious. If that's going to be an issue, so be it. The group that's incorporated go off, undertake a Latinlicious festival. HCHC will look at an opportunity to run another Latin food festival. And from a city perspective, the more food festivals, the better. I don't know that that's a place that the city should try to pick sides on. The second more fundamental issue that has been raised before committee this morning is the issue of the internal dialogue within the Latin American Hispanic communities about identity. And that was really the focus of the legacy allocation, was to assist the community in furthering that dialogue about community identity in Toronto. There have been a number of comments about the challenges in framing that dialogue, which is why I have recommended to committee, and my recommendation before you this morning, is that an amount of $100,000 be not allocated, not provided to HCHC, and that city staff continue to engage with the community. And I have engaged my colleague from Equity, Diversity, and Human Rights in this conversation to figure out how we can best support a community dialogue, not frustrate it, which clearly this morning would suggest is the track that we've unfortunately ended up on. So we are recommending that the $100,000 be held back, that we work with the community to understand how to best to facilitate that identity dialogue.
One further question, Chair, and I know you're not timing me, so I'll just make a short one. I mean, we heard from Deputants, Mr. Brillinger, this morning that other communities were not invited that could identify themselves as part of the larger community that comes from the Caribbean, Hispanic, Latin American. This would be the Brazilians, the Guyanese, the people from Suriname. I'm just wondering, if we're hearing this now, and this was not brought up, and we didn't even think about it as a city, did we fail in our part to include those communities? Did we fail to invite them? I mean, the Guyanese community, in speaking to members of the Guyanese community in the Council General, the same thing with Suriname, and I'm sure that if I asked the Brazilians, they would probably get the same thing, that they were not invited. Was that a failure on our part?
We did, in fact, think about them, Councillor. That's why we've recommended that the $100,000 not be released, and that we engage in a conversation with those communities to determine what a fulsome, positive community dialogue process would look like.
But Mr.
Concerns that
Brillinger,
have been raised by the deputants, the concerns that you're raising now, are exactly the concerns that staff had that generated recommendations 2 and 3.
Mr. Brillinger, I'm looking at a memo May the 4th, and you signed it recommending that we move ahead and give this money. What has changed since May the 4th to today?
What is being recommended is that the 2 components of the original grant, the Latin American Hispanic Month celebration and Latin Food Festival, be supported. The 3rd component of the original project, which was to, again, facilitate the community dialogue about identity, be held back for the very reasons that have been discussed at committee this morning, so that we can engage with different parts of the community to understand what that process should look like.
Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions for staff?
I have a question.
Councillor Fletcher?
Thank you. Mr. Brillinger, I heard you say that in recommendation 1, which very specifically speaks about Latinlicious, that you would be okay with a removal of Latinlicious because it's kind of trademarked and replaced with Latin food, and that would proceed as that grant would proceed as it was originally conceived. Is that?
That's correct. I would not, I'm not aware of a trademark, so that issue, that remains an open question.
Right.
But in discussion with the board of HCHC, rather than get into a protracted argument over who owns the term, when in fact the issue is a Latin American food festival, that HCHC not use that title and come up with a different title for its Latin food event. So a revision to recommendation 1 would be helpful.
So just to be clear what that would mean, I'd be prepared to move that if the deferral fails, that we'd have that original HCHC money, but it wouldn't be for Latinlicious because there's some debate over kind of who owns that term, and the food festival could proceed. And then would you consider convening a meeting of all of the key stakeholders in the community under yourselves and to have a conversation, that people are obviously wanting to have that conversation in the community, and that Councillor Palacio, of course, would be able to attend, as would any other councillor. Councillor Bailao says she speaks Spanish, she could attend, should they wish to attend.
Absolutely.
And that would you be prepared to report back on that dialogue and how you would issue a new call and how you would go about that for the other $100,000 in September? Could you do that by September 20th at our next CDR meeting?
Staff would be pleased to do so.
Thank you. So I will be moving those motions.
Any other questions for staff? Councillor Burnside?
Thank you. Yeah, my questions are a little more general. It says in the summary here, the grant of $175,000 is to enhance community cohesion, which may be a little bit problematic here, and support economic and social development. My question is, what do you mean by, apart from this particular debate, but enhancing community cohesion and supporting social development? I get the economic part.
That is the second part of the issue in front of committee, the conversation about community identity. And it is the Hispanic Latin American communities are engaged in a conversation and a intra-community dialogue that is completely natural and appropriate for those communities in our context. The debates that committee members are hearing from members of the community are not an indication of a problem. They're an indication that there is a healthy, engaged debate going on within the Latin American and Hispanic communities in Toronto. That is something to be celebrated. The work before us is to figure out how the city can best facilitate that conversation in a positive way and not inadvertently engage itself in conflicts that are a natural part of the community that need to happen within the community. Staff have done the best they can based on the meetings we've held with both those who are opposing HCHC's work and HCHC itself, along with our knowledge, our general knowledge of the community, to come up with a set of recommendations that kind of walk the middle line and hopefully at the end of the day help to facilitate a positive conversation.
Okay, thanks. But my actual question wasn't specific, as I said. It wasn't specific to this debate. It's what do you mean overall by enhancing community cohesion and social development? I get promoting, supporting economic development, but I'm trying to sort of understand in my mind, like how much money we're actually spending on sort of promoting culture as opposed to what we're spending on other things.
So the discussion isn't about culture in an arts and culture sense. It's about culture in a community identity sense of the word, and that is social development. That is about community cohesion. So that's what the focus is. I should also point out to committee members that this was a legacy grant program established by council as part of the Pan Am initiative. It is the community that identified the specific projects and activities that they wanted to undertake. So it's the community who identified through the proposal the need for the conversation about Hispanic Latin American identity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burnside. I have a couple of quick questions. The funds are being used for the development of a mobile application. Is that correct?
In relation to the food festival, yes.
So these funds are for software development.
As a part of the creating the event, including promotion, organizing the event, it is amongst the costs, yes.
But specifically mentions a mobile application. It seems for an event specific, it seems like a lot of money for a mobile app.
It's not just the mobile app, it's the staffing support associated with the initiative, the promotions, all of the costs. The other thing is the $75,000 covers two activities, the Latin Food Festival and the Hispanic Month celebrations.
So the funds, is there elasticity in the funds? It can be used for things beyond the mobile application. It can be used for other activities? Because the way I read this, it's really to develop this mobile app to support these two events.
Correct. The current council direction is that the funds be used for the defined events. So as long as the expenses are related to those events, then, and that's a typical discussion between grant recipient and staff in terms of specifically where the funds are used.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff? Because we're going to go to speakers. Speakers list. I know there's motions coming. Councillor Barlow? I don't differentiate. I thought you had a motion, that's why I asked you. Well, not at this committee, they don't. We don't differentiate. No, we do. No. Councillor Karagianis, if you want to speak, go ahead.
Thank you. I don't think I can make a motion. However, you do have a letter in front of you by Councillor Cesar Palacio that requests that we put this off and come back, be it September or October. I would strongly recommend that. We heard from individuals that they feel that there's been a rift in the community. We see that the thing in front of you says Latin issues, and we do have people that have reported the name, that have incorporated the name Latin Licious, and all of a sudden we hear from staff that, well, let's just call it Latin food. And community members say very strongly that the Guyanese community should be involved, the Suriname community should be involved, and they have not been involved. So I would say to you that we hold off any funding. Certainly, we've seen the failure on our part, be it councillors or staff or whoever it might be, that we didn't we help divide the community versus uniting the community. And if funds were to be released before all these groups were come together, you'll drive a bigger spike in there than anything else. I mean, I take it example from my community, the Greek community, that if you got one member, you got one political party, but when you get two members of the Greek community, you got three parties. My party, your party, our party. And I think here what we're trying to do by having two people, we're not helping them get together, but we're helping them come to four parties. So a failure has been established. We have divided the community, and by calling it Latinlicious, calling it Latin food, calling it whatever you want, and releasing money to the Hispanic Heritage, Hispanic Canadian Heritage Council, a lot of people are here arguing us that they don't represent the community, and we heard that loud and clear, that it will be a failure on our part. So I say to you that you should be supporting a deferral until this is done, and no money to be released until we're able to bring the communities together. That is my sense of the point of view. And, you know, all due respect to staff, I think that we didn't do our homework. We did not bring the community together. Rather, we helped divide the community and bring a big wedge among them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Karygiannis. Councillor Nunziata.
Just a few comments. I would support the deferral as well. And I'm looking at a report, an email actually that Councillor Palacio sent to all the groups, advising the groups, because I believe that Councillor Palacio is the one that fought to put this grant forward in 2015 and informing all the agencies that he was successful in getting the grant. So he has done a lot of work on this. And the only reason that the community groups are divided is because there's a grant, and that there's a number of conflicts. If we didn't have the grant, I'm sure that, you know, there wouldn't be this conflict and they wouldn't be divided, but it's a grant. You know, at one point you say, well, why don't we just cancel the grant, really? Because it's caused more conflicts than it did previously. So maybe this is what we created, but I would support the deferral, and absolutely Councillor Palacio should be part of it, attending, or city staff lead it, because it was his initiative that brought this grant forward, and that's why we're here.
Thank you, Councillor Nunziata. Any other speakers? Councillor Bailão?
So I will be taking carriage of the deferral. I think that basically the first thing is I want to thank staff, because they are in a thankless and very difficult situation. I know they've worked and they've done a lot of work to try to bring the community together. And to try to do the best they could. So I really want to recognize the work that has been done by staff. I do not feel like they have not done the best they could. I feel quite the opposite. So there are some still outstanding things. There are some, clearly the cohesion that the grant talks about has not been fully achieved, and that's why I'm putting the deferral forward, to give an opportunity to people to come around the table and to hopefully come to a consensus that actually builds the community forward. So I'm hoping that, you know, we can, it's a few more months, and hopefully the result will be to bring people together around these projects. Maybe a little bit of time pressure and pressure that, you know, they need to understand that the grant was to build community cohesion, not to divide the community. And actually what the groups need to start understanding is this is actually hindering the community. Because in the future, when people think about grants and granting community grants, they're going to be looking at this and it's like, do we want to have a whole bunch of groups fighting each other over the grant? And that's what they need to start thinking about. So I think that, I hope that once everybody gets in the room with staff and with Councillor Palacio, and hopefully, you know, a lot of us also have Latin communities in our communities. I know Councillor Cole does, I do, even Councillor Nunziata. I mean, we're all going to be able to help that, but I hope that everybody comes into the room knowing that it needs to be a solution, and that if we don't bring the community together, is a disservice to everybody. And as community leaders, we all have the responsibility of coming together on this.
Thank you, Councillor Bailao. Councillor Fletcher.
I'm going to not moving the following motion and not be supporting the deferral. I'm moving that recommendation 1 be amended, delete Latinicious and replace it with Latin food, and adopt recommendation 1 as we've amended here. And that along the same lines as the deferral motion, but not as explicit, that we ask the Executive Director, Social Development, Finance and Administration to convene a meeting of key stakeholders, which would include Councillor Palacio as an interested councillor, to determine how the city can best support the community dialogue and identity, and report back on September 20th, 2016. I believe this accomplishes the same idea that Councillor Bailao and Councillor Palacio would like. It just does one thing, though. I think we're here to make decisions as a committee. Our staff have recommended that we proceed with that $75,000, but that we hold back the rest of it to have that larger community conversation, and I support that. Changing Latinicious, which, as we've heard today, is controversial. Everybody thinks they own that brand. To the Latin food event, clears that up as far as who gets that money, because it's going to the group. The other $100,000 can easily be the subject of that conversation, led by our very capable staff, and I'm sure that Mr. Brillinger will bring in others from other departments. And I would, if this was a local ward issue, I would very much support that being convened by the ward councillor. You know, we do convene planning meetings, we convene park meetings, we convene many things that are in our wards. But to simply say that one councillor would convene that when there are many Hispanic peoples living outside of, pardon? Sorry, Latin American peoples living outside of our Councillor Palacio's ward, I don't think that that is the right way to go. So we can't, no one has that ability to act on behalf of the city unless they're named. We only have that ability in our ward. And I think this is broader than a ward boundary. It's not simply Councillor Palacio's ward. I understand how interested he is in it, and I'm sorry he's not here today. I know he'd have a lot to say. I recognize his interest, I honor his interest, but he's not the only interested party, because it's not simply a ward issue. So I think that this would help our staff bring everybody together, including Councillor Palacio and any other councillors whose wards would be affected in this way. And I'm going to move that. And as I said, I won't be supporting the deferral motion. I'd ask councillors to support this one direction and then create a new condition for the other part of the grant. I'd like to thank staff for helping.
Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarity, your number 2 recognizes that, I guess, the remaining $100,000 would, that decision is still deferred and only happens once this kind of community dialogue happens.
That's absolutely correct, that all we're allocating here today is the $75,000. The allocation of the $100,000 would have to come after this process.
So in effect, it's in some ways a partial deferral on the second decision or conversation.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. So there's no decision being made about the $100,000 here. It's respecting the community dialogue. So the only decision, the only allocation of funds from this committee is the $75,000, and there's a direction to staff to come back with how they would recommend the other $100,000 be allocated.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions for the mover? Well, we have a motion to defer on the floor, so we would take that first. All those in favor? All those opposed? That loses. Councillor Fletcher's motion is before us. Make it clear that this is making a partial decision today and dialogue in the future. And the effort on item 2 is to make sure that we get all the groups together and make sure that they come to some kind of an amicable solution or compromise on how to share the celebration of the community and share the funds that are available. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Councillor Barlow, you held item 3. Proposed amendments to the Housing Services Act. Sorry?
Point of order, if any counselor wishes to speak to a member of the public, they step out into the public area, and the public actually isn't allowed in this. This is the council. Pardon? No, we're not having a line, but we understand that's how it operates. I know you were in the House of Commons, so you're just still learning here.
However, in
I don't
defending
know. If you
myself,
want
I
to
was
put us through
approached by
more
a member of
pain,
the
go
public
ahead.
when I had my back turned, but I'm sure that Councillor Fletcher has done this many a times. And if we go back on tape, we will see that this is not, what she's pointing out.
Point of order, I have never had the public come into the council area here or in council, period. Full stop, councillor.
Okay.
All right, with that said, item 3, and Councillor Barlow held it down.
Huh? I just might do that. Come on.
Do you have questions for staff?
Yes, just a very quick question. On the first proposed change, actually, the eliminating requirements for ministerial consent, do you have any indication if this is when we are changing from one housing provider to the other, or is this the case scenario where when we had the scattered homes that we are actually selling them in the market?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would say, first of all, that the devil's in the details, because we don't have the details of the proposed wording. We'll be looking at that closely. But my understanding from a policy point of view is it includes both, so that the city could actually approve transfers between providers and also the sale of property.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a couple questions unless other members would like to go first. No? On page 3 of the report, there's a reference here to implementing a portable housing benefit. So is that a new program? Is that quite different than a housing allowance or a rent supplement agreement?
To you, Mr. Chair, the only program that's recognized in the Housing Services Act is RGI, Rent Geared to Income. That's the only thing that sort of exists. The Housing Allowance Program is a program that's been created in the last probably 10 to 12 years. That is a funding program that's been created. It's not really included in the legislation. It's the program definition. The portable housing benefit would be actually enshrined in legislation. It would be part of our service level standards. So we could actually, instead of providing RGI, we could provide the portable benefit. We could, in future, we could actually have all three. We could have RGI, we could have housing allowances, and we could have this portable benefit. But it would be the city's decision going forward, which is, this is the opportunity to decide what's the best approach for citizens, for clients in Toronto. and then we would be able to use that within our service level standards.
So would we be able to design or make recommendations for design? Is there more flexibility with a portable housing benefit than what we're currently dealing with, which actually seems quite rigid?
To you, Mr. Chair. So a couple things on that. One is we expect it will be quite flexible, and we would have quite a bit of room to do the design ourselves. However, the province has said they're going to create a framework, a broad framework for these portable benefits, and they're striking a committee of including municipalities that are going to help design that over the next 6 months or so.
And the reference in the same sentence to simplifying the rent geared to income calculations, how would you just quickly define the simplification? Are we zeroing in on a total household, or how would you?
So through you, Mr. Chair, again, the devil's in the details. There's actually very little detail in terms of the simplification of RGI. They've said, first of all, they're actually going to help create this portable benefit, but they've also said they're going to simplify RGI. I think the simplest thing they could do on RGI, which we'll be pushing them to do, is actually use the tax system to test eligibility instead of using a process of asking clients to provide paperwork every year in a very onerous process that to actually access the tax files. And it may not be for all clients, but for example, seniors and fixed income, it would be a very simple way to very quickly simplify a large part of the RGI program.
Would we need a tripartite agreement with the federal government to do that, or no? We're good to go with that now?
To you, Mr. Chair, the federal government, unless they change their approach, the federal government has not really expressed any interest in participating at the policy level. Currently, they're not, these rules are all provincial rules, so the province has the ability to change this. That really doesn't involve the federal government.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for staff? No? Speakers? Councillor Ballo?
Be taking carriage of Councillor Matlow's recommendation on this item, so I have a motion. Oh, sorry.
Any speakers on this item? No? Okay, well, let's adopt. Let's adopt the recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Item number 5, I held it down.
Can I speak on it?
That's right, I held it down on behalf of Councillor Nunziata. And we can go to questions to staff.
No, I don't have any questions.
No? Anyone have questions for staff on item number 5? Well, let's go right to speakers. Councillor Nunziata.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do have a motion that you have indicated that you would move for me on my behalf. That
Yes.
the Community Development and Recreation Committee recommends that Council direct the Executive Director of Social Development, Finance and Administration to allocate $2,000 for eligible costs from the 2016 Community Festivals and Special Events Investment Funding Program in Mount Dennis Community Association to hold a community festival that showcases a fishing competition and sporting events in Eglinton Flats. Now, they originally applied for a grant and they were refused and they appealed, but I'm here to ask the committee to support the $2,000. And the reason for that is when the grants went through, there were other groups that received grants, which I wasn't too keen about. And, as far as getting the community together and being a community festival, really, in my opinion, did not warrant. But this one here in particular does warrant, and that's why I'm asking that even though we don't give them what they requested, which was, I think, $6,000, if we give them $2,000 to assist them, this is an event that they've been doing yearly. And in the last 2 years, it's escalated. We've had thousands of people. It's at Eglinton Platts, and we have a pond there where we invite, and it's the community association that hosts the event, and the businesses, kids from all over, and they come and they fish. We give them fishing rods, we give them bait, we give them, and it's really escalated, and we're getting kids from all over, not even from Ward 11, from everywhere, because it's a great event. There's a barbecue, and it's the only event, in my opinion, actually, where community groups have applied for grants where they actually get the community involved in it, and you get a lot of kids and families involved in it. And so I was disappointed that they were not granted even a small grant, grant from what they requested. But I think the $2,000 would assist them in the event. They try to get sponsorships, but it's not funded at all. So I'm asking the committee if you would support the group. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? Well, technically I have to move it. So I would simply congratulate the local councillor for her advocacy. This sounds like a fantastic program that's doing great things in the local community. Certainly, from what we can see, it's worthy of this grant. All those in favor? It's carried. Do you put the worms on? Oh, but you put it on the hook? No? All right, this is the new item, a motion from Councillor Matlow. And Councillor Bello, you've taken care of it? You were going to move it earlier? Okay.
Can I just say something about this?
We can go to speakers.
Well, I just want to say that I support the recommendation, and I have actually been advocating on the recommendation, particular one, for years. I believe when David Miller was mayor, and I've even mentioned it when I was on the Toronto Housing Board. And I think that the request to partner with small landlords to provide rental housing, I think that that's the right step in the right direction. And so I think I'm looking forward to the report, because this is something I think that we should have actually looked at years ago, and we should all be, and especially with Toronto Housing, looking at partnerships. There are a lot of vacant buildings, and I'm sure in everybody's ward where landlords are not renovating and they're just letting their buildings go down. And if we can work in a private partnership at the city to give them incentive to clean up their buildings, to renovate, and then we can subsidize and we can make these units available, I think is the right step to move forward. So I am in full support of the recommendation.
Great. Thanks very much. Everyone has the motion in front of them. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. We are done. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the day.